Welcome to Decide to Move podcast, where top experts share tips and strategies to grow you from where you currently are to where you are destined to be personally and professionally. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M. Bijou.
Welcome back to another episode of Decide to Move podcast. I'm super excited for my guest today. She is the founder of Discover the Edge and has helped thousands of people transform their lives and achieve extraordinary results in business. Her 30 plus years of experience in business, leadership, and human behavior, along with overcoming adversity in her own life, has uniquely equipped her to empower greatness in others. As a host of Leaders of Transformation podcast, she has interviewed over 300 difference makers and has reached listeners in 130 countries around the world. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you doing?
I'm glad to be here, Monica. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm so good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I enjoyed our last conversation so much. So yeah.
Yes. It's like I enjoy working and talking to you. I'm like, I can talk to you forever and we probably never have enough to talk about. So I'm so grateful to have you on the podcast because I know you have experienced adversity in your life. And one of the big things is that my mission with this podcast is to really help entrepreneurs who've gone through something in their life, going through some type of pivotal shift, realize that you can actually restart again and you can get on the right track without having to start to the bottom. Because as we know, when we've experienced success, we don't want to start from the bottom. We want the right answers, the right strategies, instead of getting all these hooky patooky little strategies to do things. And so I am so grateful that I have someone like you that I can actually share this podcast with.
Awesome. Well, it's funny that you talk about people who want to start from rock bottom. Sometimes that is where you end up and you start where you are. And so I know that journey. I know that journey up and I know that journey down, that fast plummet down to get to the point where, sometimes you do need to start from the beginning, but in a new, fresh way with what you learned from the last experience. And that's key.
Exactly. And that's one of the things is learning how to use your experiences, whether they're good or bad, to really help you move along. So do you mind sharing with us, well, before we even get into you talking about your story, give me a little history about your entrepreneur journey, like what things that you go through before you said, okay, this is the path that I want to take with my podcast and everything else that you're doing to really make a change in people's lives.
Yeah, so I went on that journey of like the up and the down and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So that pivot period. So yeah, so I started out very early on with my parents in being in business, being entrepreneurs. So I just naturally gravitated to that and helped them in their business. Then I started my own business when I was 16, first official business. Before then I was like selling jewelry at 12 and whatever, and had fun with that. But I was just always entrepreneurial. And I thought that was going to be the path that I always wanted to take in sales and marketing. And then I said with my parents' business, and we built a very successful business. And then my late 20s, it had all fallen apart within a short period of time. And I was literally sitting there thinking, like, well, what am I going to do now? Like, that literally everything that we had built and we spent 20 years building. And I say 20 years because I started out, even my parents started out that business when I was 7, and I was helping out at 7 and 8 years old, stocking shelves and doing whatever I could do because it was a home-based business. And so 20 years later, I felt initially like I have nothing to show for it. I poured 20 years and the whole thing fell apart. Not only did I lose everything, my parents lost everything. And so what do you do with that? And so that's where I took the time to really unpack the journey, what I learned from it, what I learned on the way up, but also what I learned on the way down. How could I extract all of the lessons from it? So I wouldn't, number one, have to repeat it again, but number two, it would give me a guideline or some indication of how do I move forward. And in that process, then I also looked at what is my passion. So I didn't want to just I'm not talking about regurgitating the old necessarily, but taking all of this lesson. Okay, because I think that I really firmly believe that God does not waste any experiences, and especially the painful experiences. So there are these incredible lessons, and then we look at that and say, oh, wow, okay, so what am I going to do with all this? I had this gift given to me in the form of great lessons. What am I going to do with all that? Then I couple that with my strengths and what I was passionate about, and that's what I call Discover the Edge, which is my company name. Is this, like, that's where it came from, was the intersection of those three things. So my life experience and all those lessons, my strengths and my passion. And that was the sweet spot where it's like, oh, okay, so this is how I'm going to use that. Here's how I'm going to go forward with it. And that's how I started Discover the Edge, which was at that time a training and development company. There was another pivot. There's always pivots along the way. So that was a training and development company. I was going to do workshops, and I was going to teach personality dynamics, because every business is about relationships, and every business is a people business. And so I was going to teach this tool something that I used that just allowed me to, over the years, be able to relate to anyone, anytime, any place. So I started to teach that. And then gradually, as I was going into businesses and working with smaller teams, I was working with these small businesses, not necessarily the large corporations, but in those small to medium-sized businesses, I started noticing a lot of other dysfunction going on in the business. And so I noticed some areas that I just naturally knew how to deal with, because I had dealt with it in our own businesses. And so I started to offer to help in those areas, which led people to ask me, can you coach me? Can you mentor me? And so on the life coaching side, but also on the business coaching side. And so then I started to pivot and expand ultimately to not just be teaching personality dynamics, but actually widening that repertoire out, if you will, to helping people to maximize their potential, maximize their human potential, their relational potential, their earning potential, their business potential, all of that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Decide to Move is all about as well. That's what my company is about, is helping people through all those. And you'll find that you start off with one place, like leadership, and then you find there's so many more avenues as personality, how to help people get along, just a lot of different dynamics that I find myself I always feel like my job is to talk myself out of a job eventually, like help. But I find the more that I'm helping, there's other areas that I end up having to support and help people with. So Absolutely. It sounds like you did the exact same thing.
And, you talk about mindset a lot, and that's really important, because the strategies and the techniques and all of that is good and it's necessary. But if you don't get the mindset right, if you don't get your mindset right, and you understand what's driving your behavior, then none of that's going to make a lasting impact, true lasting impact. In fact, I've had, and I'm sure you've met lots of entrepreneurs, they know what to do. They know the right things to do. They've done all the courses. They went to all the programs. They've listened to all the webinars. They know what to do, but they're still not doing it. Why? Because there's somewhere deep inside, there's a belief system, there's a limiting belief that is holding them back. There's a fear, however, you name it, different things, but ultimately what we're talking about is that belief structure, which ultimately drives our behavior, drives our mindset, which ultimately drives our behavior, which drives our results. And so that's where it all starts. You have to start there. And, we're talking also about uncertainty. You got to get comfortable with uncertainty. There is a belief that we have in society, by and large, is that things are supposed to be a certain way. We all have a belief about how things are supposed to be. In fact, Tony Robbins talks about the definition of happiness, or the formula for happiness. And the formula for happiness is when your life conditions meet your blueprint for life. And unhappiness is when your life conditions do not meet your blueprint, or your blueprint does not meet your life conditions. And so when you think about it, it's so true, because this is the way it's supposed to be, but it's like this. So what do I do with that? How do I reconcile that? Or there's so much uncertainty in the world right now, and where everybody's trying to grasp onto something that is known. And so it's important to understand how to deal with that. And speaking of Tony Robbins, he talks about human need psychology, right? We all have the need for certainty, a certain amount of certainty, but excessive certainty and always having to be in control and always having to know, that's where it starts to act in our detriment. When we're trying to hold on, it's like everything has to be a certain way. So actually the first one is certainty, and then it's variety. We need a certain amount of variety to be able to balance that out. And then of course, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution. But yeah, this pivoting that you're talking about, it's the unknown. But then how do you create the unprecedented future if it's all known? Like if it's all planned out and you know exactly what it's going to look like and it's all predictable, how exciting is that?
Not at all. And everything you're talking about, I literally had the exact same conversation with a client today that was going through this whole piece of I plan and I plan and I plan, but it just seems like nothing goes right. And it's we had to have a whole discussion about it. And I'm one that I use a lot of humor when I'm coaching and working with clients. And she just was cracking up laughing because some of the things that I was telling her, I was like, you already working on sides and of like saying I'm going to make fish, and you're deciding on the sides and stressing about the sides, but you haven't even bought the fish, went fishing or nothing. Like, hello. She started laughing. She was like, oh my gosh, I actually do that. And I'm like, so let's start backwards. Let's stop. And I had to help her with this huge plan, but it's like so many times people want to know the end results without enjoying the part of, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but I can start micro steps. Let me start just right here and then take one step along, and then it works itself out. So
yeah, there's a challenge with, and there's like this balance between having a vision, a clear vision, begin with the end in mind, Stephen Covey talks about. And so there's that piece. And then there's having flexibility, adaptability, to agility, to be able to navigate. And so how you're going to get there. So you may have a vision and say, at like a broader vision, this is what I'm looking to create. This, right? But your client, for example, is like, she might could have a broader vision of what she wants to create. But how she's going to get there might be different. I remember when I was in my 20s and when we still had that business, and even prior to it being at the peak of its success. And I would be like, God, would you bless me here? Would you bless me? And I would be like, genuinely, please bless me in this particular area. I'm trying to work this out, and please bless me. And it was like he said to me, and I think God talks to us all the way we need to be talked to. So my personality being rather direct and strong, having a strong personality, he said to me, will you stop telling me where to bless you? Let me bless you where I feel it's the right place to bless you. And I was just like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that, or that I shouldn't be doing that. Or I just was like, oh. And as I released that, there was a freedom in that to allow the unfolding of my life, not to be random and just like, okay, we'll see what happens, but to allow that unfolding and maneuvering and pivoting and, oh, this happened. Okay, what do I learn from that? Okay, so where do we go from here? And enjoying the journey, like you were talking about, enjoying the process, that those baby steps along the way, still knowing that ultimately, what I desire is that abundant life, that great life, that life of fulfillment where I know that my life has mattered and it's made a difference. So that's the vision. How that's actually going to happen, sometimes we try to engineer it too early on, and people say, I know what's going to happen. Oh, trust me, you do not know. How many times I remember in my 20s where I was like, I got this, I know how this is going to happen. And it was like, oh, you do not know what's coming around the corner. You just don't know. Trust me. And thank God, I was actually talking to a friend about this recently. Thank God that we don't know. Some people want to know the future. They want to orchestrate the future, or they want somebody to tell them the future. Tell me what's going to happen. So they go to psychics, right? Or whoever to figure that out. And I think there's a blessing in not knowing, because if I knew the stuff that I had to go through to get here, and I knew that ahead of time, I might not want to take that journey. It's like Joseph in the Bible. I don't know that, like, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be so great. You're going to be sold into slavery. Then you're going to go here, and then you're going to be in prison. You're going to be accused. You think he would be excited about that journey? God gave him a dream and didn't tell him exactly how it was going to play out. That's like Abraham. I want you to go, leave your people here, and you're going to go to the promised land. Where is it? I'll tell you when you get there. How do I know where it is unless you tell me where we're going? Trust me. Just follow me. That's hard to do. For those of us, at least, just speak for myself, who like to control the situation. Not to say other people, but we like to control that situation. So there's that freedom. So there's a balance of having that dream, having that vision, and saying, this is what I want. I have the dream in my heart for whatever it looks like, a family, a home, lifestyle, children, whatever that is, impact. But allowing the how, it's like, if you've probably heard the saying, make your goals, put your goals in concrete and your plans in sand, allowing that to maneuver. And actually what happens is that when you get there, and this has been my experience, is that when you get there, it's far better than you could ever dream. Had you tried to maneuver it yourself, it's far better than you can ever have planned it to be.
Yeah. And, and you were talking about the biblical stories, and my favorite one is when Jesus told the disciples, let us go to the other side, and he's in the boat sleeping. And people's like, Lord, Jesus, we're about to drown. He's like, oh, ye of little faith. I always say, like, once I'm told where to go, I don't worry about the middle part because I can't control it. I'm going to have storms, but every time I've gone through a storm, I've came back on the other side, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Is like, how do you allow yourself to go through that storm and then use all the adversity and the things that you've been through and thrive at the end of the day, not knowing the clear path that you're going to go.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that story. And so often, even like, so Peter, at one of the other stories where he talks about walking on the water, it's like, okay, if that's you, then let me walk. Like, I want to come out in the water and be with you. Okay. And so what happens, right? Yay. He walks on the water. And then what does he do?
Look down.
He looks down and starts sinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do. We're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I want to go there. Oh my goodness. What's happening right here? Yeah, but you don't understand. This person did this, or this didn't happen. That deal didn't close. The car broke down. And we start looking down and we start sinking into the dark waters when nothing's changed except our focus or our focal point.
Yeah. And also going after something that may not necessarily be yours. So many business owners see someone else do something and they want to do the quick, rich scheme or try to do something another way that is not their calling or it's not their direction. Something else is better for them, but they want to follow what someone else is doing. And oftentimes then they wonder, why this didn't work for me? It probably because it was not yours to have. There's another path for you that's better.
That's so true. That is so true. I've done that in my own life where I saw in someone else and I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have that. But we always, we look at the highlight reel, especially nowadays with social media. We look at the highlight. I wish I had all of that amazing whatever that's going on over there, not realizing that behind the scenes there's maybe a whole different picture. I mean, I hope that it's as beautiful as it looks, but not all the time is it. And to whom much is given, much is required. So a lot of times we look at that and say, wow, how many times have you heard somebody say, I just wish, I wish I could be where you are. Or the great musician, I forget the name, but I remember this story where this musician played, this pianist, he played, and this woman came up to him and said afterwards, after the concert, and said, I wish I could play like you. And, that's my dream. And he's like, are you willing to do the work though, that it takes day in, day out to be able to play like this. And that's where the rubber meets the road. Are you willing to do that? Or people will say, wow, you're such a bright light. Oh my gosh, or you're so successful, or you're just such an amazing person. But there's a lot of deep inner work to get to that point. I don't know any really successful people in any field that have not gone through some form of trial, because that's where they get purified through fire. That's where they the dross on the silver gets burned off. That's where that happens, is in the fire. And so we've got to be willing to go through that. But when we look down, it's like, oh my gosh, just trusting. Can we trust enough to know that we're going to get through this? And even that's like, we're coming back to the beliefs and the dialogue. So I like giving practical things that people can do. So changing your focus, changing your words, the words you say, notice the words you say to yourself, and start transforming those words into empowering words. I've had clients who use the word maybe, probably, even probably. I had a client who used to use that all the time. Probably this, and probably, like, just random, like in statements, and English was a second language for him. And I'm like, wait a second, okay, probably, or you are going to do this, or probably, or like, where does that fit in? He all of a sudden became aware of it and started to eliminate that from his language. Maybe, try is another one. Have to is another one. I have to do this. It's like on one of the number one things that people say, I got to go do this. It's a version of it. I have to do this. I have to do that. You don't have to do anything. You do not have to do anything. You don't even have to be successful. No, you don't. I have a family. I got to protect, and provide for my family. Yeah. All that's nice, but you don't have to do that, because every day there are people that prove that you don't have to do that. You also don't get to live, you don't have to live in the house that you live in. Your kids don't have to go to private school. Like, you choose to. Choosing is a much more empowering word than have to. I did a video once on this still on Facebook, on the Discover the Edge page, where I talk about the difference between obligation and opportunity. Do you look at things as an obligation? I have to do this. I have to do, today I got all these meetings. I've got to do this. I got to meet with so-and-so. I got to do, it's just kind of rolls off our tongue. All right. And you think about it saying, is that an obligation, or is that an opportunity? I get to meet with Monica today. I get to do this. At some point for myself, I was preparing for the day ahead, and I had this really busy week, and like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And this, like, for myself. And I went, Nicole, you are the owner of the business, right? Like, you scheduled these appointments. You chose when they were going to be. Did you not? This is me talking to myself, right? Hello, you get to choose it. And if you don't like it, make it different next time. And then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, I wanted this day to look like this. So what am I having to? It's not about having to, I get to. I created this. I made it this way. So it's a totally different way to look at things. So change your focus, change your words, and change your state of being, change your state of your physiology. There's lots that we can talk about there.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I feel like you were in my session today because the first 15 minutes, my client was like, I can. And I mean, like, I heard I can't probably like 10, 15 times. It was a lot. And after she was done, I do what I normally do. And I look at her and I was like, you can't. So let's talk about that word. And she just puts her head down because she knows that I'm going to say something like, I'm not going to, like, let's come up with a new way of expressing yourself, because words are so huge and important. And so I talked to her about setting the intention for the day. If you wake up saying, I can't, let's look at even your body language, the way that it comes off. You resonate with that when you're Absolutely. Like, I can. And it's like, you just take on this different demeanor compared to, I'm setting an intention. This is what my day is going to look like, and I'm going to make it happen. So
I love that. The word can't. My grandfather, I don't know where this came from. My grandfather in Holland translated it. It used to be, Cant is dead. My dad would say Cant. He's like, Cant? Cant is dead. The old Dutchman. Not sure like dead, how that worked. But I remember a guy, but it always stuck in my head. So Cant wasn't a word we used a lot around our house. But the other gentleman that really made a great point that lasted with me was, I forget his name, Bill, I forget his last name, but he wrote a book called Sticks and Stones May Break Your Bones, but Words Will Surely Kill You. And it came out maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm dating myself. But I heard him speak on stage, and he talked about this word can't, and he said, can't really doesn't exist. Think about it. It's not that you can't. It's either you don't know how or you don't want to. So which is it? So when people tell me they can, I go, okay, so is it that you don't know how or you don't want to? Because then I don't want to do it. Like I can't meet you today. I can't meet you. It's not that you can't meet me. You technically could meet me, but you have another appointment, right? So you're making a choice, again, coming back to that being in the driver's seat. You're making the choice that I'm not able to meet you because I'm choosing to meet someone else, or I don't know how I can be in two places at once, right? Or I don't know how I can get to Houston to meet you in person today. So that I don't know how to do, but there's an empowerment to that where it's like, I don't know how to do something. And then we can start to look at solutions, alternatives to it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that word can't is a popular one.
Yeah. Can't and try. I'm like, well, try to pick up this $20.
Yep.
They're like, got it. Like, okay. I like to use a lot of analogies. So you talk a lot of, about like really uncertainty and different things like that. What are some of the other strategies, I know, using your words and different things that a person can actually thrive in the midst of uncertainty when they don't know what's happening?
So in that moment when they are feeling the uncertainty, fear, mm-hmm. What do we fear? We fear most of all, we fear the unknown, mm-hmm. right? So when you have something that you don't know, right? There's a couple of things you could do. First of all, it's like, I don't know anything about this. Awesome. So you can look at it a couple of ways. First of all, you could say, what do I know? And that's the same thing with can't. I can't do this. Okay, well, what can you do? Right? So it shifts the focus. And so, it takes, our mind is like a problem solver. So if we give it a statement, or we, and it's like a matchmaker. Somebody said recently, one of my podcast guests, and she said it's a matchmaker. So if you put a thought out there, it's going to be like, match it, right? Reinforce it, validate it. And so with, you say like, I can't do this, or I don't know how to do this. Then you say, okay, what do I know? Right? The other thing is that you can do it's a great technique, is when you're in that place of fear and doubt, celebrate. What's the first thing we want to do, of course, is not celebrate. What we want to do is we look down, or we get stressed and our body tenses up. But what if you were just to be like, woohoo, celebrate. Yes, something I don't know how to do. Awesome. Your mind's going to be like, what? And it's the pattern interrupt to shift the thinking to, it interrupts the pattern, starts breaking that record because of the natural progression of what you're used to doing, right? This happens, I get afraid, I freeze up, this happens, and then that happens. There's this snowball effect. How do you interrupt the snowball effect? Is you do a pattern interrupt and celebrate. And you start creating a new association with the unknown. You create a new association with what's uncertain to you. You look at it like, wow, this is awesome. I don't know anything about this. I get to learn. I don't have to. I get to learn about this. I can figure this out. You know what? I may not know anything about this, but I can figure it out. If you think of like successful people, and I've interviewed so many of them on my show that did something that they didn't know anything about, but they were curious about, learned about it, became massively successful. And what the common thing that they would say to themselves, if they go back, rewind the tape back to those moments in the beginning, is they would tell themselves, I can figure this out. That's a belief that they had, that they could figure it out. Whereas people that had the idea that didn't do it, usually what they have is they've got that, I don't know how to do this. I can't figure this out. I don't have the support. I lack. There's the lack, right? So those are some of the techniques that, you just even say, do a list and say, okay, well, what do I know? Where can I start from here? Those baby steps, where can I start? Who do I know? I may not know, but who do I know that knows? Where can I get help? What resources do I need? I recently came up with this model. It's the first time I'm sharing it with somebody other than a couple of my clients. But the idea is like in the center is this, like whatever you're believing for. I'm believing for this. Okay. And then what's immediately going to come up for most people is there's going to be some supporting thoughts and there's going to be some opposing thoughts. So write them down, right? This is what I'm believing for. Build a successful business, launch this new business, whatever the case is. Figure out what my business is. That might be it. I'm believing for clarity and purpose. Okay. Right. What are the supporting thoughts to that? What do you believe to be true about that? Are you excited about as it relates to that? What's that going to do for you? Right? All the positives, the blessings that are going to come with that and the possibilities. The opposing thoughts are all the things like, oh, this will never work. Oh my gosh, it's going to take so long though. But I'm 57 years old. If I start now, I'm already, maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too this, and whatever those opposing thoughts are. Okay. And as a believer, I looked at it and I was like, oh, look what I'm creating here. It's a cross. It's awesome. On the top above it is, what does God say about this? So this is what you say. What does God say about this? What does he have to say about your supporting thoughts? What does he have to say about your opposing thoughts? Right? And journal and write those down. And then look at it and saying, what resources? Okay, so God says, this is a God dream, right? Because there's dreams that we have that are ours, ideas that we have that are ours, goals that we have that are ours. And then there are God dreams. And if God says, do something like my podcast, you're going to do a podcast. This is what it's going to be called. This is what's, go. Then it's like, okay, so I've got the clear instruction on that, right? So, so then the question is, what are the resources that I need? Not what do I not have, don't have, I don't have this, yeah, but, all that. It's okay, so what resources do I need? So God and I are in alignment with this, or people, if they don't believe in God, however, what you subscribe to, source or whatever, or that inner power that you've got. And you look at it and you go, okay, so what resources do I need? Who do I need to partner with? And what are the next steps? What are the immediate next steps I need to take to start and get into motion in this? And so, I shared that with a few of my clients recently, and it's been really helpful to them to just kind of like break it down, because sometimes we have all these, like, I have these thoughts and I have those thoughts and I have this going on and that going on. And sometimes creating a structure helps to be able to, and to see it on paper and to see how it's structured, and to give priority, in this case, give priority to what God says about this, what for some, universe, like source, right? What is the bigger picture on this, right? And how does this relate to what I think and what needs to happen? And I found, because I did it for myself, I found there's like this incredible piece about it. Like I have a plan, right, that I can work. My little side note, by the way, on business plans, this, I'm sure. It's most business plans. People spend a lot of time doing it. They're very useful exercises to do. And when they're done, they generally get put in a drawer and never looked at again. Because then it comes down to, in reality, what do we need to do? So I generally, unless you're planning to raise capital or whatever, or you're going to a bank to get a loan or something like that, they certainly need a business plan. But for myself, I look at it and like, I want to know what my action plan is going to be. And so this can lead to that action plan. But it also doesn't discount, because those opposing thoughts are there. Sometimes we try to ignore them, shut them out. And that can work for a while, but they're actually a clue. They're a gift, just like our challenges in life. They are a gift to indicate to us what our beliefs are, what's really running the show. And so when you look at those opposing thoughts, you go, oh, that's what's running the, I need to be aware of those opposing thoughts. I can't ignore them. I need to be aware of them. And then I can submit them or surrender them, right? From there. But if I'm not aware of them, oftentimes the beliefs that run us the most, the beliefs that are the most detrimental to us, are not the ones we're aware of. It's the ones we're unaware of. It's the money conversation, the belief around money, the belief that you have to work hard to be successful. And then maybe if you're lucky, you'll make it. It's the belief that, you know what, I make money and I lose money. It comes and it goes. There's never enough money. Easy come, easy go. Whatever the belief is. Money doesn't grow on trees. Well, actually it does. But anyway, so that's all, right? One time I said that to somebody, I was like, actually it does. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, it's paper. Anyway, traditionally. So, but it just stopped them in their tracks and just challenged their belief. So does that help?
Yeah, and that's really good. I actually, one of my guests that I interviewed called them their safety police, like where the safety police comes up and they're saying little things and they're like, okay, aha, I know who that is. Let me put you in your place, and then do opposite of what my little, because of course, what I always tell people, when you have those thoughts, they're serving a purpose. Fear serves a purpose. What is that purpose? And once you figure that out, then we can actually start working with that. And oftentimes I actually had, like, I feel like you were in my session like a fly on the wall, because all the things that you were saying was exactly the conversation that we were having about fear. And I do another activity similar. And I have them write what their beliefs are, especially if it's a negative one. And I have them pretend like they're in a court. So what are the evidence for that belief, and what evidence do you have against it? So pretend like you have your prosecutor and your defense attorney. What would they say? What evidence would they present to say this thought is correct? And so that's something that I help them with. And it helps a lot, because they're like, oh, okay. Oftentimes they don't even find they have anything to support that negative thought or belief. So
yeah, absolutely. Or it's really unfounded, or it's ridiculous.
mm-hmm.
And they look at it and they think, I can't believe I actually believe that. And this is another piece, is that there's a difference between fact and truth, or the story, right? So there's the reality, if you will, and then there's the story about the reality. So sometimes people will say, well, this is just the way it is. Like, it's just the way I am. I cannot sell. I don't know how to sell. I can't sell. Stop telling me I can learn how to sell, because I don't know how to sell. And I've actually had people say that to me, where it's like, I just don't know how to sell. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because you're doing a really good job right now on trying to sell me on why you can't sell. And they go, what? And it's just, again, another pattern interrupt. Sometimes you got to interrupt, like you doing with your, it's like interrupt that and saying, hey, wait a second, and acknowledge. You bring up a really good point about the fear. Fear serves a purpose, and it allows us to see. I don't usually say it shines light, but it allows us to see what's going on. But it's also there. It's there to protect us. Many times, that fear that we're talking about, it's there to protect us. It's like, I don't want you to get hurt, right? It's the fight or flight primal instinct that we have to survive, the need for self-preservation, that kind of fear that we're talking about. And so you look at it and you can acknowledge it and saying, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for wanting to protect me. In this particular case, I'm like, and even just talking, I'm safe. Telling yourself, I am safe. I am safe. I am secure. Right? Nothing bad's going to happen to me. And it's actually not even good or bad. I also talk a lot with my clients about reframing their words around good or bad, right or wrong, because most people don't like to be wrong. And so they like to be right, but they don't like to be wrong. But when you start getting in that conversation of right or wrong, there's always a right and a wrong. And so, so rather than looking at it like that, or good or bad, how can we determine whether an experience is a bad experience versus a good experience? I could look at my, being fully transparent, my ex-husband cheating on me. Most people would say that's a bad experience. But was it? Because it was through that experience that I got to see parts of me and the way that I showed up and my beliefs about myself, my insecurities. I got to see it in that place. I wouldn't have gotten to see it otherwise. And so was it bad, or was it just an experience? And then I got to make the meaning of it that I wanted to make. And we are meaning making machines, so we can make meaning about anything. The other thing with that is with good or bad, right or wrong, I look at things like, let's say you try something, it doesn't work. This is going to happen for the people that are pivoting and relaunching. They're going to try something and it's not going to work. And they go, I did it wrong. What did I do wrong? How many times have you heard people say that, right? What did I do wrong? Right? What's wrong with me? And I did this I was really bad presentation. No, it either worked or it didn't work. It either worked to get you the result that you were looking for, or it didn't work to get you the result. So you have a situation, a sales presentation, it doesn't go well. Well, okay, so you can actually unpack that sales presentation or that business failure or that relational failure, whatever. I'm going to unpack a day. You can do this for anything. And you look at it and you say, okay, what worked about this? There's always something that worked. Even if it was, oh, what worked about this is I got to see myself freak out in front of a prospect. That was enlightening because there's obviously something I need to deal with. I'm being, extreme, right? But I have my first presentation in front of a group. I forgot my name. So, start from humble beginnings. So, that didn't work, that worked, right? What didn't work about it was that in the process of that, I lost connection with the person I was speaking to, and they decided they didn't want to go with me because they didn't feel that they were confident enough in my ability. And so I didn't get a sale. That didn't work. What did I learn about that? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about human interaction? What did I learn about sales, doing presentations? What did I learn about that? What would I do differently next time? What can I learn from it, right? And do differently next time? What can I do if it's going well? And if it went really well, what worked about it? What can I do more of what worked about it? That was amazing. This part was amazing. Then I lost it. Great. I can do more of this and I can make adjustments here. And that's how you tweak. That's the feedback loop, how you tweak and improve and incrementally get better and better and better and hone your skill, hone your success, if you will.
That's great stuff. And that's exactly, giving more nuggets of how you actually can thrive in uncertainty, because when you're given a presentation, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it gives you an opportunity to always evaluate where you are and constantly build on top of that. Because I always say there's no such thing as perfect. We're never, I always say I'm not Jesus. So, if I am perfect, then I should be somewhere else instead of sitting in front of whoever I'm talking to. And so for me, it's always a constant process of working and working and working. Cause like same thing what you were saying, like when my husband, he cheated on me as well. And it was like, okay, all right, so where do we go from here? Because I was refusing to allow it to be about me. That was his choice, not something that I forced him to do. And so therefore he has to deal with that choice. I just have to deal with how I'm going to handle it. So,
yeah. And there's also the taking ownership too. This is not to negate the ownership, because in that case with me, I was like, okay, so where did I play a part in this?
Yep.
And then what part do I own? What part does he own? What do we do with this? Yeah. Coming back to the whole perfection, because I used to be a perfectionist, is, this idea of progress, not perfection. Our goal is progress, not perfection. And I remember one of my mentors who used to have this, he has a saying, he would say, you either win or you learn. You don't lose. The only time you lose is when you didn't get the lesson and then you repeat it over and over again. You might say, yeah, that's a loss because you just didn't get it, right? And then you kind of wasted the opportunity to learn something. But you either win or you learn. And when you learn something, isn't that a win? So that's where you get to celebrate all your wins, which is another technique. It's just celebrating all your wins. It's kind of like you're just literally like, yeah, I'm celebrating, because what am I celebrating? I'm celebrating my learning. I'm celebrating my progress. I'm celebrating my awareness. Oh, I learned another way that this is not going to work. Yay. Right. So that just one more thing, or you have a no. I was talking to a client earlier this week about this. It's like, great. You can look at a no, somebody tells you no, and you can be down and depressed about that. Or you can celebrate and saying, great, I'm one no closer to a yes. It's all the way you look at it.
Yeah. This is great stuff. I mean, like I told you before, we can talk forever. I really greatly thank you for all the nuggets and things that you shared. Is there any last words that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I know. I think we've covered a lot. I think the key is, and I think I may have said this on our summit when we did our summit a while back, is believe in yourself. Believe that you can figure it out. If nothing else that you get out of this is you learn how to reframe the beliefs that you have about yourself. Yeah, because you're amazing. If you're, as I heard somebody say recently, I have gotten through 100% of my bad days.
I like that.
I was like, all right. So I can believe in myself because you know what? Everything's going to be okay. I've made it through 100% of my bad days.
Yeah, I like that. And so how can we find you? I know that you say you have a Facebook group as well. What are some of the other ways that our guests can and listeners can reach you?
Actually, the Facebook is really more of a page. I don't have a group for Discover the Edge.
Okay.
But there are some great resources there. We also, of course, I have the podcast, Leaders of Transformation. I've interviewed over 300 people. So there's some amazing resources and learning in there. But you can go to discovertheedge.com. There's a great resource on the homepage called the Purpose to Profits Blueprint, which I think would be really relevant to your audience. And because it walks through how do I turn my purpose into a profitable business? And there's like a 5-step process to do that. And then I unpack each one. So I think that would be a great resource for people. And then if they want to reach out to me and book a discovery session, because maybe they want some help or want to unpack this further, they can talk to you. They can talk to you. Or if they do want to talk to me, they can reach out to me through my website.
I appreciate that. And my thing is, I don't really care who they reach out to, long as they're getting the support that they need. And honestly, and that's the reason why that I even started the podcast, was for that reason, to really provide resources for people so that they can actually get to where they desire to be and not stay stuck and be in one place. And so yeah. I appreciate you being on the path with me to help me bring that to my clients, and as well as yours, because we pretty much have some similar audience.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. And I greatly appreciate you being with us at Decide to Move podcast, where we're definitely here to help clients get from where they currently are to where they desire to be through lots of different avenues. And so right now it's all about confidence mindset and helping them take their adversity and their uncertainty and really thrive in the midst of that. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. It was really, really fun. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you for listening to Decide to Move podcast with Monica M. Bijou. If you're ready to grow personally and professionally in order to take your destined position in the world, then schedule a free clarity call at bit.ly/call with Monica. That's bit.ly/call with Monica, or visit us at decidetomovepodcast.com for all links mentioned today and listen to previous episodes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and rate us on iTunes or your favorite listening platform.